I think it's a really important distinction to explain how our body can utilize different types of fuel substrates. So there's carbohydrates that can be stored in muscle, they can be stored in liver. If you have too much stored carbohydrate, you can develop non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD, as we like to call it. Can also store fats, in our body, and most of us have quite a bit of fat. And I say this, like, even thin people have plenty of body fat to be able to utilize. But if we are eating too frequently, and every time we're eating, we're increasing our blood sugar, and depending on what macronutrient we're consuming, whether it's protein, fat, or carbs, has a different net impact on how much blood sugar is fluctuating, and correspondingly also fasting, or also insulin. But if we're eating too frequently and we're eating too many carbohydrates, especially processed carbs, hyperpalatable carbs, and not enough protein and the wrong types of fats, we put ourselves in the position where we're no longer efficient. Our body can't efficiently utilize those stored carbs, or it will preferentially use the stored carbs because there's so many around. And if insulin remains elevated because we're eating too frequently and eating the wrong types of foods, our body can't effectively go in and use the stored fat or fatty acids as a fuel source. So when we go from eating 6 to 10 times a day to eating 2 to 3 times a day, our body and our blood sugar and our insulin levels are, they go up appropriately in response to eating a meal. Again, dependent on the type of macronutrients we are consuming. It'll allow our bodies in an unfed state to be able to go in and utilize the stored fat as a fuel source. And fat is if you want to think about a fire, carbohydrates are the kindling. They're quick to be utilized and readily utilized, but for a long duration of sustained energy and improvement in cognition, we want those fats to be used as a fuel source. And so the kindling are the carbohydrates, the bigger logs are the fats. And for anyone that's ever, done a race or done an event and maybe sprinted and then felt like they bonked, or did a race and felt like they just couldn't sustain the energy, it's because they're not actually metabolically efficient. And so when I start to talk to my patient population about metabolic flexibility, it's helping them understand that optimally, we want to be able to use stored carbohydrates or stored fats as a fuel source. Most of us are stuck in the carbohydrate utilization mode, which means we have, significant changes in our energy levels throughout the day. We get hangry. We are struggle with weight loss resistance. We really will struggle with longer periods of going without eating. And so that's why these people are oftentimes dependent on, processed carbs, because it's a quick source of energy. Their blood sugar will go up and come back down, and then they start this vicious cycle over and over again. Versus when you're able to use both fuel substrates. And you could argue, I've had guests on my podcast that have talked about ketones as being a completely separate form of fuel substrate, helping them understand that when you are going from dinner to breakfast, and maybe that is 12 hours, 13 hours for some of these individuals, that you're helping your body become more optimally efficient. And it's all about efficiency, and helping them understand that over time, their body will respond to the lack of food, and it will go looking for a fuel source to maintain their body, maintain homeostasis. And so, these fatty acids, if they're broken down, can be very effective in keeping and helping with sustained energy, having people have very clear cognition, allowing people to forget about having to eat. I think on a lot of different levels, because we have so many metabolically unhealthy individuals, they have gotten so accustomed to taking food with them everywhere they go, because they're so worried that their body's not going to effectively be able to, mentate or move around without, these kind of SOS meals, as a lot of my patients call them. So I think when I think about metabolic flexibility, it's having the ability to utilize both stored fats and or glycogen. Glycogen is as stored carbohydrates, but also being able to break down fat as fatty acids to use as a fuel source, and understanding that optimally we want to be able to use both. They're not one is good and one is bad. This is the way that our bodies are designed to thrive and remain in optimal health by using both substrates.
Hey, this is Ari. I hope you enjoyed this little clip. And if you want to listen to the full-length podcast, the link for that is down in the description below. Also, one more thing before you go, I want to mention, in case you don't already know about it, our formula, Energenesis. This is an amazing product that has multiple compounds in it that are scientifically proven in numerous studies to increase your energy levels, not just by 3% or 5% or 10%, but by 30 or 40 or 50% in a very, very short time frame. So one of these compounds that I'll mention here is called NT factor phospholipid, and it is an extract of phospholipids that comes from lecithin, and they extract the pure phospholipids from this, things like phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylethanolamine, and many others. And these are the same fatty acid compounds, phospholipid compounds, that compose our cell membranes and mitochondrial membranes. And this specific patented formula has been shown actually to enter into the bloodstream undigested, basically without being broken down and denatured through the digestive process in the stomach and the intestines. It makes it into the bloodstream and actually makes it all the way to our cells and to our mitochondria, where it helps repair damaged mitochondrial membranes and facilitates our mitochondria functioning better. Now, all of that sounds like wonderful theory, and it sounds like it could be beneficial, but the real test is, has it actually been studied and been proven to increase your energy levels? And the answer is yes, absolutely. There are numerous studies outlined in a wonderful paper by a scientist named Garth Nicholson, in a paper called Lipid Replacement Therapy. I highly recommend checking this out if you're interested in digging into the research. But this compound has been studied in the context of multiple different kinds of chronic fatigue. Aging-related chronic fatigue, obesity-related chronic fatigue, obscure things like Gulf War illness, and numerous studies in chronic fatigue syndrome. And there are studies showing that this has the capability. They've taken one study, in fact, actually showed that in elderly adults over the age of 65, it restored their mitochondrial health, which had deteriorated heavily. It restored it to the level of healthy 29-year-olds, believe it or not. And they've actually measured energy levels in these people. And all of these studies across the board show improvements in energy of at least 25%, and typically more like 35 to 45% in just the span of between 4 to 12 weeks. That's how long all of these studies are, 4 to 12 weeks. They're showing dramatic, huge improvements in energy levels by helping to repair these mitochondrial membranes through this thing called lipid replacement therapy, using, again, this patented form of a phospholipid extract called NT factor. This is just one of about 20 ingredients proven to benefit mitochondrial health that you'll find in my formula, Energenesis. So I strongly encourage you, if you are struggling with your energy levels, if you're dealing with chronic fatigue, go grab yourself a bottle or 3 of this, or subscribe and save. Try it out. You are going to be blown away by the results. We get so many testimonials. We get so many emails from people talking about how this one thing has transformed their lives. So I cannot encourage you strongly enough to give this a shot. And let's say you buy 3 bottles, try out the first one, give it a month. And if you don't notice significant improvements, you can return the unopened bottles to us for a full refund. So give it a shot. I really think you're going to be blown away by the results. The formula is called Energenesis, and you can get it at theenergyblueprint.com or click the link below. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you again very soon.